when the golden sun sinks in the hills, and the toil of a long day is over. Though the road may be long, in the lilt of a song, I forget I was weary before. Far ahead where the blue shadows fall, I shall come to contentment and rest, and the toils of the day will be all charmed away in my little grey home in the west. Their hands that will welcome me in, their lips that I'm burning to kiss. There are two eyes that shine just because they are mine, and 1,000 things other men miss. It's a corner of heaven itself, though it's only a tumble-down nest. But with love brooding there, why no place can compare with my little grey home in the west. My little grey home in the west. Lovely tune, that. You know, during the Great War, 14 to 19, everyone knew that song. All the kids back home, all the mums and the dads, all the girlfriends, all the wives. They all knew my little grey home in the west. You know, they say that by the end of the war, the piano that stood at Talbot House would play that all by its own son. Well, how about that, eh? Anyway, look, I'm forgetting myself here. Number 239, Private Arthur Pettifer, 1st Battalion the Buffs, at your service. I'm pleased to make your acquaintance. But of course, I know you're not here to hear my story, though even if I say so myself, it is a story worth divulging. We're here to hear about his lovely place over in Belgium, Poperinge, a little town in Belgium. A place called Talbot House. And a wonderful fellow used to run that house by the name of Philip Clayton. Now, some of you may have heard this Philip Clayton referred to as Tubby Clayton. If you don't mind me, I got to know him fairly well, you know, and I always felt calling him Tubby Clayton was a little bit disrespectful. So I will call him Reverend Clayton or Philip Clayton or something along those lines, if you don't mind. Still, I'll tell you what. I will tell you a little bit about myself, just so that you know, I know what I'm talking about, all right? Well, now, where to start, eh? Well, I was born in 1874, which is a bloody long time ago now, and makes me a lot older than I look. I'm glad you agree, anyhow. Well, when I was 12, mark you, I joined the army. You imagine that now, eh? A 12-year-old joining the army. Well, I did. As a band's boy. And I loved it. Oh, what a life I had in the army. Went all over the empire. Went all different countries, got all different sorts of things. Animals I didn't think existed. People that were, well, just a different kind of people. But then, naturally, one's time in the army comes to a natural conclusion. And I gave up my army uniform and had to return home to East Hackney, where I took on the uniform of a chauffeur. But I tell you something, I didn't have that uniform very long, because August 1914 happened. War. How about that? Fantastic. I couldn't believe my luck. A little bit of war to get stuck into. Do you know, I was one of the first ones to get my old uniform back. And I was over in France by November that year, anxious that I'd get some action before it was all over by Christmas. That's what we thought, anyhow. But by May of the following year, the war was still going. And I had made the acquaintance of a certain Ypres salient. Now let me tell you something. You know, when they talk about the Great War these days, they always remind us about the Battle of the Somme. And the first day of the Somme, July the 1st, 1916. Worst day in British military history, that was. 60,000 casualties in one day. Well, I'll tell you something. For most of the war, that Somme area was kind of a peaceful sector. And if you got sent down to the Somme, well, you kind of thought that your ship had come in. The boys down there, they'd be swimming in the rivers, like it or not. But Ypres, the Ypres salient, well, that's a different kettle of fish. Ypres, or wipers, as us boys called it, that was hell on earth. You know, they say that by the end of the war, a fella could sit on horseback in the town square and clean look from one side of the town straight to the other. Such was the devastation of the German shelling. It was in this salient, see. Let me explain something to you. When we've got all these trenches going on, all the way from the North Belgian coast, all the way down to Switzerland, Germans and their allies on one side, us, the French, and our allies on the other. And most of the time, those trenches are pretty parallel to each other. They fire straight at us, we fire straight back at them. But if you're an assailant, like we was at Ypres, that's when your lines jut into theirs. So they can fire at you from the front, from the sides, and even, like at Ypres, up your backside. That's how dangerous it was. Hell on earth, Ypres. It's in this salient, just outside the town itself, a place called Saint-Julien Road. Just a little bit north and east of town, it's in this salient. In April 15, about a month before I arrived, the Germans, they came up with a new weapon to attack our boys with. In the middle of the night, right? Boys in the trenches, it was the French at the time. They're standing there minding their own business. All of a sudden they see this smoke billowing towards them. Well, the Frenchy generals, they think it's a smoke screen, and the Germans are going to make a big advance towards the lines. So they call everybody up into the lines and take the trenches. They pack it with boys. Well, that smoke, it comes over no man's land. And when it hits the trenches, the boys soon realise it's just not a smoke screen. It's gas. Well, those Frenchies, they scarpered. They weren't going to have none of that. They were out of there. Pandemonium it was. And then all of a sudden, there's this bleeding great gap in our trench lines. Germans, they could have marched straight through, got to Ypres, got to the coast, the war would have been over. And luckily, we had some Canadians nearby, and they sealed that hole up, plugged it. They weren't going to be frightened no gas. They got out their handkerchiefs, they peed on them, stuck them over their mouths, and they held it. They held the lines. Those wonderful Canadian fellas. You know, there's a memorial to them there today on this Saint-Julien Road. It's called the Vancouver Corner. It's got this brooding soldier looking straight down on the site that the Canadians bravely, heroically held the lines. Ypres. A couple of months after that, still in this salient, a place called Hooge, just outside Ypres, a little bit east. So our boys, middle of the night, sat in our trenches, they suddenly see the Germans coming out of their trenches. And as they do, these Germans, they're belching forth fire. Great flames of it coming towards them. Germans have invented the Flammenwerfer. flamethrower. You imagine the terror of a boy being stuck in your trenches, knowing that the Germans are coming over with flames. Terrible place, Heap. Then a couple of years after that, of course, we get our own back a little bit. Because we've been busy, right? We've been digging down shafts down in our lines, under no man's land. And then we've been planting all these mines under the Messines Ridge. Beginning of June, we blow those mines. Magnificent sight. What a sound. I mean, they heard the explosions back in London. You could see rocks flying up in the air. Soil, heads, arms, legs. It was bleeding marvellous. We'd won the war, that's what we thought. At that point, we were going to break through the lines, get to Berlin by tea time. Trouble is, the orders weren't given to advance, to take the initiative. The orders were to stay put. Wait for the reinforcements to come up the line. So we waited. We waited. We waited all summer. And that summer, it rained. Then it rained a little bit more. It became the wettest summer anybody had ever known. So eventually, when he gives the orders to advance, to start this battle, the third Battle of Ypres, they're going to call it. When he gives the orders to advance, it's not so much the German machine guns we're scared about. It's the cloying mud, the Flanders fields, that holds us and drags us down and drowns us as we're trying to make this tiny little advance, this tiny little village he's going to liberate. A little village called Passchendaele. You and I, we don't know that battle as the third Battle of Ypres. We know it as the Battle of Passchendaele. That autumn, that battle, in the mud, we suffer 310,000 casualties. Ypres. Bleeding awful place. It's also around here that, well, we lose our youngest fellas. Let me tell you about a place you can go to today. It's called Essex Farm Cemetery. Well, now during the Great War, Essex Farm was actually an advanced dressing station. Somewhere the boys were sent to clean up their wounds if they got shot up a bit, and then sent back up the lines. Or maybe if the wounds were a little bit serious, they'd be patched up and sent nearer the coast to an hospital or something. Or if their wounds were real serious, right? Well, they'll still be there today. Well, this Essex Farm is famous for two things today. The one thing is all about one of the doctors that used to work there during the war. A fellow by the name of Dr. John McCrae. Wonderful fellow, Canadian again. Well, this one night, he's been working solidly, saving limbs and arms and lives. And he takes himself out of his dugout. And the sun's just come up. And he wipes the mud and the sweat and the blood from his eyes. And blinks up into the sun. He looks around and sees the trees. And amongst the trees, the birds are still singing and flying around. Then he looks down at the ground. And he sees these pitiful little wooden crosses. And amongst the wooden crosses there's these poppies bursting out of the soil. He's inspired, this fella. He sits himself down, gets out a pencil and a paper, and he starts penning In Flanders fields the poppies blow, amongst the crosses, row on row that mark our place. It's a lovely poem, you'll know it. Became huge success. Well, it was penned here, Essex Farm. You can go there today and there's a little plaque to him and tells you all the story about him. Well, you take a little bit of time if you go to Essex Farm. You wander around this little cemetery. Lovely it is, just like all the others. Little garden with flowers and bushes and trees. And it's beautifully kept, white Portland headstones. You wander around, you might see a fella that's got a military medal winner. Or this guy was one of the Gloucesters over here. Well, you wander around enough and you'll suddenly notice that one of these over here, this headstone's got more flowers around it than any of the others. And you'll be drawn to it. And you'll look at this headstone, and the name will read Rifleman Valentine Joe Strudwick. Well, Joe Strudwick was 15 years of age when they put him in the ground. You go a little bit north and east, still in this salient, to a much bigger cemetery. Pole Capel British Military Cemetery. Thousands of these headstones in there. You couldn't possibly go around them in one day. But if you did, you'll come to another headstone with more flowers around it than Valentine Joe Strudwick. And you'll look at that name, and it'll say, Private John Condon. Well, now they say that Private Condon was just 14 years of age when he died. Deep. Bloody awful place. Still, I am not here to depress you and tell you all these sad stories. I'm here to tell you a good story about the war, something that will inspire you and hopefully put a nice little spring in your step. This wonderful place, Talbot House. Right, and let me explain. When we got all our trench lines sorted out and our British war efforts realised that, well, they need a base for their headquarters, somewhere that was close-ish to the front line but also had good transport links. They looked at their maps and they decided on Poperinge. Now, as soon as they'd done so, well, this place became a 24-hour-a-day metropolis. It had everything a British Tommy away from his family and friends could possibly want. It had cafes and restaurants, hotels, cinemas, theatres, shops. Well, let's just say it had everything a British Tommy away from his family could possibly want. Not to put too much of a finer point on it. Anyhow, this place became a veritable den of vice and debauchery. But into it walked two men of God. Two men that will ultimately exact upon it an everlasting influence. Now, to be honest, if you saw these two fellas walking down the street here, you kind of thought they looked a bit of a freak show. Because the one, Reverend Talbot, he was a monster of a man. Went on forever. Skinny like a beanpole, but 6'4", 5', 6', 7", I don't know. He's a giant of a fella. But his acquaintance, or associate, the Reverend Philip Clayton, well, let's just say he was of an entirely different build.
I arrived in Poperinge one rainy autumn night in 1915, fresh from a hospital chaplaincy at Le Treport, and never having witnessed any military operation more important than the relieving of the guard at Whitehall. The dismal train had crawled cautiously into the much-shelled station at 2 a.m, depositing me in a plethora of luggage at the RTO's office. Disdaining offers of assistance and leaving my luggage in a hideous heap, I had started to walk into the nearest town, Poperinge, with the hazy notion of finding a hotel. Outside, the night was inky overhead, and the road deep in mire. After half an hour's splashing, I began to think the town a myth, and upon confiding my doubts to two men in front, was much humbled to discover that I was walking away from Poperinge, along the famous pave causeway that leads to Vlaminting and Ypres.
And by the time our Reverend here turned up at Poperinge, Neville Talbot, the Reverend Talbot, and the other chaplains of the 6th Division had opened to great success an officers' club. But it was all their ambitions to open up a club where rank was going to be of no issue.
Friday afternoon, November 27th, 1915. Talbot is trying to get me an empty house in the nearest town, Poperinge, where I can both live myself and start some sort of homely club for the multitude of troops who pass to and fro. I'm strongly in favour of this, as it's work that I shall be less of a duffer at than this Bush Brotherhood business with all its distracting differences. If it pans out, I shall want for a lot of things like papers and books and pens and pictures of the pair's annual type. I shall also need a room for a chapel, which we badly need for confirmation work as well as celebration.
When Neville Talbot searched for suitable premises in Poperinge, took him all round the town. Eventually, he came upon this place in Rue de l'Hôpital, number 35 Rue de l'Hôpital, to be honest. Now, this place was owned by a successful brewer in the town who had taken the not unwise step of shipping his family out of it when it got shelled by the Germans. Well, this brewer, by the name of Toc H, had a discourse with Neville Talbot, and they came to this agreement that for 55 francs a month, the army could have their house on two conditions. First of all, they had to get rid of a massive safe which was in the sitting room and deposit it elsewhere. Secondly, well, they had to weatherproof the old house against the German bombardment, as it were.
Tuesday, November 30th, 1915. I'm very busy living with one of my battalions in billets and taking over a jolly house, which is to be the pussy house of the place once we have swept it and bunged the hole where the shell hit it. However, it is an ill shell that blows no one any good, and this has blown us a house, which would otherwise have been occupied as a billet.
Now, it's about this time of the proceedings that there I am, minding my own business, doing the usual things that the fellows were doing in the trenches at that time, which was not a bleeding lot. And I get these orders, right? I get these orders to go and report to some clergyman who I'd never even heard of, let alone met, to become his Batman. His Batman! Me! I couldn't believe it. I was no Batman material. I was an old sweat. My place was in the trenches with the rest of the lads, not some servant for some namby-pamby clergyman. Nevertheless, orders is orders. And so I go for this interview, if you like, with a fella. And I make it up in my mind that during the course of this interview, I'm going to make it absolutely plainly clear that there is no domestic chore that I'm remotely capable of achieving to any great success. I cannot sweep no floor. I cannot clean lone mirrors. I can't make a cup of tea for anybody. Bloody useless I am. You know what? He looks at me and gives me this creepy little smile. And he says to me that I am exactly what he's been looking for. I couldn't believe my eyes or my ears. I mean, my chin, it veritably hits the floor, comes back up and knocks me out. I am amazed. And I can tell you something, I am none too pleased either. But I will tell you now, and on my heart, that subsequently, becoming the Batman with that reverend gave me more pride and honour than anything else I did in my life. But that's not how I was feeling at the time. Still, orders is orders, and being a good soldier as I is, I got on with sorting out this house, along with some of the engineers who were stationed in Poperinge at the time. We started fixing it up, fixing the holes up a bit, and finding some bits of furniture and all, just to make it a little bit ship-shape and all. Homely like. I had quite an art, really, of making stuff out of things you would imagine were useful. I could make, tables out of old tent floorboards. Packing boxes I could make into chairs. And I'll go around the town on the old scrounds and I'll find bits of cutlery or crockery or all sorts of bits and pieces. We had practically everything we needed. And then this one day, I'm just out on the old scavenge, if you like, wandering around the streets of Poperinge, just seeing if there's anything nobody don't want. I'm down this little road, quiet little road, deserted really. And I see in this back garden, wow, looks like just an old carpenter's bench, just lying there, doing nothing. There's nobody around, nobody's using it. Well, I can't really see no use for carpenter's bench at the moment, but you never want to turn these things down just in case. So I'll get myself into this garden. I'll pick up this lump of wood. And I struggle with it all the way back to Rudolopy Town. Push my way in to the front door. And I chuck it down the floor. I'm a bit out of breath I was at the time. Anyhow, this kerfuffle brought our reverend running and he asked me, what have I got down there? I tell him not to worry about it, reverend. It's just an old, bit of rubbish really, just an old carpenter's bench I picked up. I can't see no point for it, but I'll chuck it outside, and if we can't use it, we'll use it as firewood. Do you know what? Almost as soon as I say old carpenter's bench, his face lights up like it's his birthday and Christmas and Easter all at the same time. He gets so excited, he goes beetroot red. Well, I think he's going to have a heart attack or something. I have to calm him down and say, calm down, Reverend, it's just an old beaten up carpenter's bench, it's nothing special. And he looks at me and puts his hand on my shoulder and he gives me that smile of his, that sort of smile you give a little kiddie wink when they say something really cute that they don't really understand the meaning of, The sort of thing, that sort of smile you get makes you want to hit them back real hard, like. Well, that's the smile he gave me. And I said, Reverend, it's just an old carpenter's bench. Gives me that smile again. And he says, this will be perfect as our altar in the upstairs chapel. Well, I didn't know what he was talking about. We ain't got no upstairs chapel, and it's just an old beaten up bit of wood. I can't see no good for an altar. He taps me on the shoulder again. And he says, Jesus was the son of a carpenter. What more suitable thing to have as his altar than an old carpenter's bench? And so that's what we does. It's kind of his genius, if you see. So I understand then, and, well, I take this thing up, and we struggle with it at 4 flights well, let's just get this right. I struggle with it at 4 flights of stairs, and he gives me his advice as we're doing so. And then up a vertical ladder into the attic, which he informs me is going to become his chapel. Well, that becomes the altar, and a couple of days later, I find this old cross just out in the streets, and that becomes the first thing on our altar. You can find all sorts of things if you put your mind to it. Just got to have the right sort of nose for sniffing them out, you know.
I have been assigned a Batman by the name of Pettifer, an excellent chap who's a typical old sweat, and whom I have titled General. For even though at his first interview he claimed inability to meet the most basic of domestic requirements, he subsequently developed unique capabilities in that direction. In fact, his powers of acquisition were second to none. I scarce mention a need, lest its fulfilment should bring disaster and disgrace. I was, for instance, overheard to mention that a carpet would be most desirable for the chapel. Within an hour, a carpet had arrived. Inquiry revealed the painful truth. It had come from next door.
Here we go, Reverend. Look at this. Lovely bit of quality up down here. Look at this. Look at the colours. Vibrant. Oh, let's move that. Hey, look at that, eh? Real quality. That is Persian, I reckon that is. You don't find that down Camden Town, I can tell you. What do you think, eh?
General,
You start doing your prayers there, be lovely.
General, I cannot say my prayers kneeling on a stolen carpet.
No. You got it all wrong. It's not stolen. It's borrowed. All right? They've gone down to south of France next door. They're not going to need it. Just borrowed, Reverend. You just try that for size, eh? Lovely. Look how it catches the lights. Oh, it's marvellous.
Well, it is very nice.
There you go, Reverend.
Yes, very. No, I cannot. No.
Well, what do you mean, Reverend? No, I mean, what are you saying? You don't like it, or?
It's very nice, but
There we go.
I cannot. Thank you. Please.
Reverend, this took me a good 45 minutes or so to find this, you know.
Well, it is.
Well, really now?
No.
That's really rather disappointing, Reverend. I'll have to say it's. I'll just. I'll roll it up for you then, and. Is it something I don't understand? Is it my lack of education? Is that what it is?
No.
No. Just something that goes beyond me, does it? Eh?
I'm sorry, but no.
Right you are, Reverend. Well, I suppose I get your meaning. I mean, if you feel uncomfortable with it up in your chapel and all, I'll tell you what I'll do, Reverend. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go and put it in your living room. It'll be much better there for you. You won't have any problems with it there.
No, not.
Lovely. That's the place. Oh, yeah. That'll keep your feet warm in the winter time, I can tell you. Now, about this time then, well, we've kind of got everything we need in this house of ours. And it's almost ready to open it up to all the boys that are going to come in and enjoy its services. So, the Reverend, he needs to paint himself a sign to hang outside the house, just to encourage the boys in. Well, Reverend Clayton and Reverend Talbot, they decided the house should be called Church House. And so there he is. This one morning, he's out on his hands and knees on the pavement outside the house with this 6-foot stretched canvas. He's got himself a pot of paint, a brush, and he's painting himself this sign. Church House he's going to do. That's the C there, you see, right? So that's the C. Church House he's doing. At this very time, who should be walking down the street on his way to see Neville Talbot? It's Colonel Reginald S. May. Now, Colonel May was the Assistant Adjutant Quartermaster General of the 6th Division. So kind of an important fella, really. And he sees our Reverend on his hands and knees doing this sign. He don't say nothing. But he looks down in his way and wanders round once. Wanders round twice. At this point, the Reverend, he's got to chew. Right, he's chew. And Colonel May, he gives him a bit of a toe poke. And then he says to him, he says, I say, Tubby, he says, I say, what the devil are you doing down there? Well, the Reverend, he's a little bit taken aback by this, and he explains he's doing this new sign, this Church House sign. Church House? Colonel May says. Church House? Good God, man, you can't possibly call it Church House. You call it Church House, you're frightening all the fellas off. No, you must come up with something far better than Church House. Well, Reverend, he's a bit concerned by this. So he calls Neville out the house, and he calls me out the house, and he explains the situation. We've got to change the name. Come up with something better than Church House. Well, poor Reverend, he's sat down there, he's scratching his head, he can't come up with nothing else. Neville Talbot, he's there, he's scratching his head. He can't come up with nothing. Me? Well, like all the soldiers in the army at that point, we're scratching all the time anyhow, so that really don't make no difference. Eventually, Colonel May, he pipes up. Tubby, Neville, you must call it Talbot House. Well now, Neville Talbot, he's a tall fellow and all, but there's no ego on him. And he's not about to call it after himself. And he says so. Colonel May, he looks up at Neville. And he says, oh, good God, man, don't be so ridiculous. We're not going to call it after you. We'll call it after your brother Gilbert. Well, now, you remember I mentioned about this flamethrower attack at Uge just a few short months before this moment? Well, Gilbert Talbot, the younger brother of Neville, he got killed leading a counterattack. And he died out there and then. He's buried at Sanctuary Wood. Well, you imagine. Neville Talbot was not going to turn down the opportunity to honour his dearly beloved brother. And so, the house became known as Talbot House, there and then. And in due course, the boys who came to Talbot House, they would just refer to it as Toc H. Because Toc is the Army Signaller's code for the letter T. And H, well, hopefully you can work that one out yourselves, anyhow.
It is a beautiful house with a lovely garden, full of standard roses, pergolas, wall fruit and a chicken run. I'm going to get together a little bunch of amateur gardeners to tend it in their spare time. It'll be a peaceful relaxation, much appreciated. And I'm anxious to have the place in apple pie order. After the voluntary concert last night, about 40 men came over the place with me and made them all quite keen on it all. We have an inaugural concert on Saturday, and I covered greatly tables and chairs and books and pens from time to time would be a great help. The men here are grateful for the simplest kindness shown to them. A cup of cocoa and a Belgian bun do not lack their reward.
Well, Talbot House was opened for the first time on December 10th, 915, the day before our Reverend's birthday.
I have just sent my first 2 weary travellers to bed after soup and biscuits, and they shall have excellent breakfasts in the morning before they go on their way rejoicing. This is the opening of our divisional rest house, to which officers coming and going by trains in the small hours can come and get supper, bed and breakfast. Tonight being the very first time, I went to the station with the very nice night orderly. I now control a staff of 3 men and an NCO besides my own Pettifer, and rescued these 2 men from a cold night in the waiting room. We can accommodate 12 and shall have the place full a week hence once it is known. Both were profoundly grateful and were nearly moved to tears by the carpet slippers awaiting them.
And so it became. The ambition of all those chaplains had materialised. A house, a club, that was open to all. Didn't matter what rank you were, didn't matter what religion you were. If you needed a little bit of comfort, somewhere for a little bit of ministry, you could come to Talbot House and find it. Because this was so evident on the Western Front at that time that, well, death didn't care what rank or religion you were. Why then on earth should a house worry about it?
From each officer we demand 5 francs on the Robin Hood principle of taking from the rich to give to the poor. For this sum, the officer secured an arrival from the leave train at 1 a.m, cocoa and Oliver biscuits, or before departure at 5 a.m, a cold meat breakfast. The bedrooms are communal, apart from the dressing room, which we have ambitiously titled the General's Bedroom, on account of there being a bed with real sheets. For the rest, stretcher beds and blankets provide more facilities for sleep than a leave-goer require or a returning officer expect.
Now, there are no rules at Talbot House. None to speak of. I mean, that was kind of the whole essence of the place. And yet, despite that, and despite the fact that it was a soft drink establishment, and Reverend Clayton was the landlord of this establishment, he managed to completely keep discipline throughout the place. Not by bellowing out orders or shouting at people if they were doing something he didn't like, but with his subtle and intelligent use of wit. See, if there was something going on that irritated him or annoyed him or piqued him, if you like, he wouldn't say nothing. He would disappear up to his little office upstairs. He'd get himself a bit of card, get his paints out, and he'd start making this sign with a, in his mind, witty little saying on. He'd then come back downstairs and he'd find a suitable wall on which to hang this sign. And you know, the boys, they would read the signs and they would get the message. So with no shouting, he always managed to keep order. To be honest, I never really understood any of them, but he always thought they were terribly funny.
Oh, there we go, yes.
What you got there now, Reverend?
Don't judge a man by his umbrella. It may not be his.
Yeah, no, I don't get that one either, haven't I?
Oh, this one will get you. Don't lose your temper. Nobody else wants it.
No, well, they were brought a lot than we had in last night, anyhow.
Right. I don't know whether this applies at all to any of the boys in tonight. If you're in the habit of spitting on the carpet at home, please spit here.
Well, that's just disgusting, Reverend. I don't want no spitting anywhere.
Well, neither do I.
Ah. You be careful again.
Yeah. Beware of half-truths. Yours may be the wrong half. Two pessimists, way out.
I'm sure you're a genius somewhere, but I don't get it anyhow. And so this house was established. A house where for 3 years, give or take, thousands, and I do mean thousands, of boys found themselves coming through those doors and finding some peace and comfort in their lives. And because it was seen as a gift from the officers to the ranks, where it developed a wonderful feeling of what's that phrase? Of esprit de corps. That's what there was at Talbot House. A wonderful feeling. And it held all the fellas together. And at Talbot House, the boys, they'd just come in and write a letter home, or grab a newspaper to read, or grab a book. A nice hot cup of Bovril or tea or something. Talbot House, they could just relax. They didn't have to talk about the war. Less was talked about the war at Talbot House than anywhere else in Europe at that time, they say. Those boys, they could forget the sights of the war and the sounds of the war. Most of all, they could forget the odours of the war. Hey, Reverend, don't you think it's about that time in the evening that we get all the boys singing like we always do? You know, it's about time for us. Look at them out tonight. I mean, you can see the enthusiasm there. They're just bursting at their seams well, anyhow. Let's give them something anyhow. Right, come on. Let's do that, I don't know. What should we do? This one, I like this one. Remember that one?
No.
Yeah. I'll start it then, shall I? Yeah. I wore a tunic, an old khaki tunic, while you wore your civvy clothes. We fought and bled it loose, while you were on the booze no one ever here knows. Here with the wenches, while we were in the trenches, facing the German foe. You were a-slacking, while we were attacking the Boche at the Manning Road. Oh, that's lovely, Rabbit. You see, we've got them going now. You can tell, can't you? Yeah.
Very vocal lot.
Yeah. Never mind, maybe it's a shell shock. Here, let's try it again. I wore a tunic, an old khaki tunic, while you wore your civvy clothes. We fought and bled it loose, while you were on the booze no one ever here knows. You with the wenches, while we were in the trenches, facing the German foe. You were a-slacking, while we were attacking the Boche at the Manning Road. That's lovely, Road. I'll tell you what, I've got another one for you here.
Oh, right.
Yeah. It's, what's that song that we like? When Irish Eyes Are Smiling, you know that
Irish
one?
Eyes.
Well, the boys have come up with some new words
Right.
for that song. Yeah. They call it When Very Lights Are Shining. You know the very lights?
Very lights?
Very lights.
Oh,
Reverend,
very lights.
They come up over now. You'll like this one, I'm sure you know it. When very lights are shining, short is like the morning light. And when guns speak, actually, Reverend, I think I could just about do with a cup of coffee.
Oh, right, now let me go.
That'd be lovely, Reverend, that'd be super.
Right back.
Great, yeah. When fairy lights are shining, short is like the morning light. And when guns begin to thunder, you can hear the angels shite. Then Maxim start to chatter, and 5 9s and gas come through. Sure when fairy lights are shining, 'tis time for the rum issue. Lovely song, isn't it?
I miss much.
Yeah, that's lovely song. Are you back already?
Yes.
Lovely. Got on to the second verse.
Oh, what?
When fairy lights are shining, sure 'tis like the morning dew. And when guns begin to thunder, makes you think your time's come to. Then Maxims start to chatter, and 5 9s and guns come through. So when fairy lights are shining, 'tis rum all the lead for you. Ah, you see, I thought it was a lovely one.
Yes, you can hear that.
When this lousy war is over, no more soldiering for me. When I get my civic clothes on, oh, how happy I shall be. No more church parades on Sunday, no more putting in for leave. I will miss the Sergeant Major, how he'll miss me, how he'll grieve. No more standing to in trenches, only one more church parade. No more NCOs to curse us, no more ticklers marmalade. When this lousy war is over, no more soldiering for me. When I get my civic clothes on, oh, how happy I shall be. People said when we enlisted, fame and medals we would win. But the fame is in the guard room, and those medals made of tin. When this lousy war is over, no more soldiering for me. When I get my civic clothes on, oh, how happy I shall be. Come on, Reverend, let's go and get ourselves a brew and let these folks go and get themselves one too. Come on then. Here we go. Come on, we'll be back in a bit. Here we go. Here we go then, Reverend. Come on. That's sort of sort him out a little bit. There we go. You see? They'll know this one. Mademoiselle from Armentier, parlez-vous. You see? That's what we should have run with from the beginning. Kind of level now, aren't we, eh? Try that again. Mademoiselle from Armentier, parlez-vous. Mademoiselle from Armentier, parlez-vous. Mademoiselle from Armentier, she hasn't been kissed for 40 years. Icky, icky, parlez-vous. Oh, lovely. Now that's good news. I love this song. Got 324 verses of it, so that should take care of a while, anyhow. Mademoiselle from Armentier, parlez-vous. Mademoiselle from Armentier, parlez-vous. She's the hardest working girl in town. She makes a living upside down. Icky, icky, parlez-vous. What's that?
I got one.
Really? All right, then off you go.
Right. When do I come in?
Anytime you like, I'll keep with you.
Mademoiselle from Armentier, parlez-vous. Mademoiselle from Armentier, parlez-vous. You didn't have to know her long to know the reason men went wrong.
Icky dinky parlez-vous. Lovely, lovely. Mademoiselle from Armentier, parlez-vous. Mademoiselle from Armentier, parlez-vous. She'd do it for wine, she'd do it for rum. Sometimes for chocolate or chewing gum. Inky dinky parlez-vous. You got another one, Reverend?
Oh, yes.
Ah, excellent.
Mademoiselle from Armentières,
Parlez-vous.
Mademoiselle from Armentières,
Parlez-vous.
The cuties rambled through her hair. She whispered sweetly, Salaga.
Inky dinky parlez-vous. That's lovely, Reverend, lovely. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to do another one from Akesley Baines. Mademoiselle from Akesley Baines. Yeah. Mademoiselle from Akesley Baines, parlez-vous. Mademoiselle from Akesley Baines, parlez-vous. Mademoiselle from Akesley Baines, she gave the Yankees shooting pains. Inky dinky parlez-vous.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't get too excited.
Mademoiselle from Saint-Nazaire, parlez-vous. Mademoiselle from Saint-Nazaire,
Parlez-vous.
Mademoiselle from Saint-Nazaire, she never washed her
Oh,
underwear.
that's disgusting.
Inky dinky parlez-vous.
All right, well, if we're going from one town to the other, how about this? I've got one from Montparnasse.
Right?
Mademoiselle from Montparnasse, parlez-vous. Mademoiselle from Montparnasse, parlez-vous. Actually, we'll not do that one. Let's do this song instead. It's a long way
To Tipperary,
it's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, Piccadilly. Farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart's right there. Lovely, lovely. It took a long time to get it hairy. It took a long time to grow. It took a long time to get it hairy, for the toothbrush hairs to show. Goodbye, Charlie Chaplin. Farewell, tufts of hair. It took a long, long time to get it hairy. Now his upper lip's quite bare. That's the wrong way to tickle Mary. That's the wrong way to kiss. Don't you know that over here, lads, they like it better like this? Hooray for la France. Farewell, Angleterre. We didn't know how to tickle Mary, but now we've learnt how.
I haven't learnt, I would just point out.
Last night as I lay on my pillow, last night as I lay on my bed, I dreamt that the old sod was dying. I dreamt that the old sod was dead. Sergeant, oh sergeant, bring back my rum ration to me, to me. Sergeant, oh sergeant, bring back my rum ration to me. Did I ever tell you, Reverend, about that time I went home last year?
No, no.
Took my wife for it was a lovely. I'll tell you. I once took my wife for a ramble along an old shady lane.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was lovely. Lovely night, lovely day. She caught her right foot in a bramble, and arse over tit she came. Sergeant, oh sergeant, bring back my rum ration to me, to me. Sergeant, oh sergeant, bring back my rum ration to me. Oh, you see, that's lovely.
Oh, what's this one?
Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. While you Lucifer to light your fag, smile, boys, that's the start. Oh, what's the use of worrying? It never was worthwhile. Oh! Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. One more time! Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. While you Lucifer to light your fag, smile, boys, that's the style. Oh, what's the worrying, it never was worthwhile. So, pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. Oh, lovely. Look, Reverend, we've got them going now. You can tell the enthusiasm is... Well, it's enthusiasm of some sort. Look, I tell you what, now that we are, they've thrown
It's all right. It's all right. It's still in one piece.
Let's do that song we did for them last Christmas, you remember?
Oh, no.
Come on, Reverend.
No.
You know, Reverend, the time that you told me that I was the only girl in the world. Come on, Reverend.
Oh, all right. Yes. Okay.
Here we go.
Get off. Come on. Over there. No, over there. Go on. Get off.
Tease.
If you were the only girl in the world, and I were the only boy, nothing else would matter in this world today. I would go on loving you the same old way. A Garden of Eden just made for two, with nothing to mar our joy. I would say such wonderful things to you. There would be such wonderful things to do if you were the only girl in the world and I were the only boy.
Oh, I love it. But if you were the only Boche in the trench and I had the only bomb, nothing else would matter in the world today. I would blow you to eternity. Chamber of horrors, just made for two, with nothing to spoil our fun. There would be such hullabaloo things to do. I would grab your rifle and bayonet too. If you were the only Boche in the trench, and I had the only bomb. There we go, Reverend. You see, I told you they'd like that one.
Yeah.
Now look, I tell you what, my missus, she sent me this lovely song today.
Oh, really?
You'll know it, I know you will. They're singing it all at home. It's Ivan Novello wrote it.
Oh, really?
Now go and give this a go. They were summoned from the hillsides, they were called in from the glen, and the country found them ready at the stirring call for men. Let no tears add to their hardship as the soldiers march along, and although your heart is breaking, make it sing this cheery song. Keep the young fires burning while your hearts are yearning. Though your lads are far away, they dream of home. There's a silver lining through the dark clouds shining. Turn the dark clouds inside out till the boys come home. Overseas there came a pleading, help a nation in distress, and we gave our glorious laddies honour bade we did no less. For no gallant son of Britain to a foreign yoke shall bend, and no Englishman is silent at the sacred call of friend. Keep the armed force burning while your hearts are yearning. Though your lads are far away, they dream of home.
Dear Mrs. Forrest, it is with a great sadness that I write this letter. No doubt you have already received the impersonal telegram that is sent to those who suffer bereavements in this ghastly war, telling you of your beloved son Archie's death. I just wanted to tell you how dreadfully sorry we all are and how much Archie came to mean to us here at Talbot House. We came to know Archie over a period of 6 weeks when he visited more or less daily. There were a few testing visits, and then he summed up Christianity to his liking. After a week, he presented himself for baptism, and a month later he was confirmed and made his first communion. That, I'm sorry to say, was a mere 10 days ago. Mrs. Forrest, I can sincerely say that his life during those 6 weeks irradiated the whole horizon of his friends, and they were many and various. Nothing would content this company that some gift from them in his memory should stand forever in our chapel, in the upper room which he had taught so many of them to frequent. A curious chair, contrived in such a way to act upon emergency as a table, was their gift. It stands close to the tiny font at which he was baptized. There is nothing that can overcome the grief of losing one so precious, but I hope that in some way this information that I send to you brings some solace during this desperate time. May God be with you. Reverend Philip Clayton.
There was no one like him, horse or foot, nor any of the guns I knew. And because it was so, why of course he went and died, which is just what the best ones do. We fought like a dog last week it were, no more than a round or two. But I struck him cruel and hard, and I wish I hadn't now, which is just too late to do. He was all that I had in the way of a friend. Now I've to find one new. But I'd give my pay and stripe to get that beggar back, which is just too late to do. So it's knock out your pipes and follow me, and it's finish off your swipes and follow me. Hark to the fifes a-calling, follow me home. Oh, take him away, he's gone where the best ones go. Take him away, and the gun wheels turning slow. Take him away, there's more from this place will come. Take him away, for the limber and the gun, for it's 3 rounds blank and follow me, and it's 13 rank and follow me. I sing the love of women. Follow me. Follow me. Home. Now in September 1917, I got myself some new orders. This time, I had to report back to base so they could put me in some labour company or something. Now I know that I've made a bit of a stink about being this Batman to Reverend Clayton and all, but I also said that that position gave me more pride than anything else in my life. And I was none too pleased to be leaving Talbot House, I can tell you. Still, as always, orders is always orders, and so I grabbed my kit together and I sorted myself out to go back. As I did so, the Reverend, he gave me a note. He said, "Don't you worry, fella, you give that to the first sergeant major you see and, well, they'll send you straight on back." Well, I did hand it over, but he just stuck it in his pocket and, as far as I know, never even read it, because I never got sent back, that's for sure. No, they put me in a labour company, attached me to the Camerons, and next thing I knew, I was mending roads up at Dickbush. In due course, though, I did get myself some leave time and, of course, made my way back to Talbot House just to say hello to the old fellas and the old place, and just to remind myself of better times, if you like. When I got there, you know, it was so hard to get through that front door because it was just crammed with fellas inside. But I did. I shifted my way in. As I looked down the hallway, who should I see coming out of the kitchen with a tray full of mugs of, I don't know, coffee and bovril and tea and cocoa and what have you. And all of a sudden, he looks up. And he must have spotted me, because he makes out this, like, banshee wail of his. And his tray goes flying up in the air. Mugs come crashing down everywhere. Poor boys there, they think there's being shelled or something. They dash underneath tables and underneath chairs and all sorts. So I picked myself through the rubble. And the Reverend, he comes up to me and gives me one of those great big bear hugs of his. And he says to me,
"It was hard enough getting you in the first place. Now that I've got you back, I'm not going to let you go."
And I say to him, "Well now, Reverend, that's real nice and all, but I'm only here for a few hours. I'm doing this old Warrington Road up by Hellfire Corner." And he says to me,
"You come with me and we'll go and see a doctor."
Well, that's what we does, right? We goes to see the doctor. Well, truth be told, we go to the doctor's, but then he leaves me outside and he goes in to see the doctor. 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes later, he comes out again on his own, son. And he hands me a doctor's note. A note that says that I am unfit to travel. Well, I can't believe it. I don't know, this doctor must have telepathic powers or something, because he ain't even seen me and he's diagnosing my illness. Well, we call over a dispatch rider, we hand him this note and send him off to base. A couple of hours later, he's back. he hands me a note. The note says, "Send Private Pettifer back immediately." To which the Reverend replies,
"Doctor's orders are, he is unfit to travel."
So that rider, he disappears off. A couple of hours later, another one turns up. He's got a note. He hands it to me and it says, "Send Private Pettifer back immediately to pick up his kit." Well, now I'm a little bit perplexed at this because I'm unfit to travel and all, but nevertheless, I'll get myself back to base, get all my kit and make my way back to Talbot House, where I stay then, all the way to the end. Marvellous in Talbot House. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a terrible time in our history and all. But Talbot House, you had friendship, and laughs, singing. We had all sorts of things going on. We'd have little parties for all the kiddies that were still in Poperinge at that time. You know, Easter egg hunts and Christmas parties and summer parties, all sorts of things. We'd run chess tournaments and debates and all sorts of wonderful things to keep the human spirit high. So successful at Talbot House, the Reverend, he opened up Little Talbot House in Ypres itself. But then March 1918 came along. The Kaiser's battle. The German big push to finish off the war before the American numbers really made much of a difference. They started pushing us real bad. So bad that, well, it was going to be last man standing. Even the cooks had to grab their rifles. You know, they got so close to Ypres, they got to Hellfire Corner. We had to close up Little Talbot House itself. Then, we got orders to close up Talbot House in Poperinge and move everything out. The Reverend wasn't keen on that, but we did, does it? And as we're locking up that door, there I am, glum as anything, and the Reverend's got this cheery disposition about him. Tells me not to be so miserable. He says, "Don't you worry, fella." He says, "We will stop this German tide and we will turn them back. And when we does, we'll be back at Talbot House. And things will go on good as ever." I didn't believe him none. I thought we was done in. But he was right. 3 months later, we had turned the German tide. And we were pushing them back. And him and I did return to Talbot House, armed to the teeth. We had a broom each, 6 dusters, and 500, mark you, packets of biscuits. Within 3 days, we'd opened up the old place and it was as good as it ever was. And it stayed that way all the way to the end. All the way to the ceasefire in November and then to Christmas 1918. God, what a marvellous Christmas that was. You could hear the singing for miles around. And then by January, well, the boys were being sent home and it soon became obvious that there weren't going to be no much more use for Talbot House, so we started packing up the bits and pieces and sending them back to London. February, Neville Talbot, he hands back the key to Mr. Kobe at Camerlink. Reverend Clayton and I, we make our way back to London. It's lovely being back in London. I mean, it's always lovely to go home, isn't it? Well, my wife, well, she said she was pleased to see me and all. But you know, when Reverend and I were back in London, it didn't take long between we started thinking about all the marvellous boys we knew over in Belgium. We began to think that How lucky we were that we got back to London safe and sound. And all those boys that we'd sang with and laughed with and joked with and shared tea with, a lot of them never came back with us. They're still over there now, in these lovely gardens with the flowers and the bushes and all. I go over and see them every now and again, once or twice a year. Take myself a picnic or what have you. And I go to a different garden each time, and I will wander around the Portland white headstones and read the names. When I come across one that I can put a face to, or a voice, or a laugh, or a singing voice to, and I take my sandwiches down to him, I open them up, start eating, and I says to him, I says, don't worry, fella. We will never forget you. You know, I don't see it as depressing or nothing. I don't really see these boys as dead. I just see them as, well, having gone on a little bit ahead of us, finding a nice, safe passage through no man's land. Passage to a place of peace and safety and of love.
With proud thanksgiving, a mother for her children, England mourns for her dead across the sea. Flesh of her flesh they were, spirit of her spirit, fallen in the cause of the free. Solemn the drums thrill, death august and royal sings sorrow up into immortal spheres. There is a music in the midst of desolation and a glory that shines upon our tears. They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end, against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. They mingle not with their laughing comrades again. They sit no more at familiar tables at home. They have no lot in our labour of the daytime. They sleep beyond England's foam. But where our desires are, and our hopes profound, felt as a wellspring that is hidden from sight, to the innermost heart of their own land they are known, as the stars are known to the night. As the stars that shall be bright when we are dust, moving in marches upon the heavenly plain, as the stars are starry in the time of our darkness, to the end they remain.
Now, there's a little bit of an epilogue to this story of Talbot House and all, because, well, when we got back to London, all of us, to this country, this land fit for heroes, that's what we're told. Fight for king and country, and we will give you a land fit for heroes. When we got back, it was soon pretty evident that this was no land fit for no heroes. You go down any street, in any town, any time of day, and you would see some fella with medals pinned to his chest. He might be missing a leg, or an arm, or half his face, or maybe Maybe he looks just right. But you can see in his eyes that hope has been taken away. He might have a little tin cap, or he might have a little sign round his neck asking for a job or a penny or two. This was no land fit for no heroes. It was a disgrace. No benefits, with no jobs. And it upset our fella there. So much so that he knew he had to do something about it. So he took the inspiration from Talbot House, Toc H, and he opened himself up a little hostel in London. He would welcome anybody. Didn't matter who you was, if you wanted a hot drink or a meal or a bed for the night, you could come there and get some comfort. Within 3 years, there were 70 of these hostels all over the country, all offering the same comforts. They call it the Toc H movement. And in each hostel in the window, there'd be this lovely little lamp that would burn, telling you if you're walking down the street, you could go there for some comfort. It then went all over the empire. If it was coloured red on the map, it had its fair share of Toc H hostels, I can tell you. They're all over the place. India, Australia, New Zealand, all over Africa, you can imagine. Canada, Malaysia, Ceylon, you name it. Wonderful success story. All from a modest man who would simply say about himself,
I was cut out to be a genius. Unfortunately, somebody forgot to put the pieces together.
But when he was quizzed and interviewed about how he'd managed to create such a wonderful success, he always put it down to one simple thing.
Every big thing is little at its birth. Britain is littered with societies, but only God can make a family.